quite certain, Mr. Quigley, that you wouldn't like the bucket a bit closer?
Alright, we're going to get it this time. Hey there folks, how you doing today? Welcome back to the channel. Please bear with any background racket that you might hear throughout this production. We're on location where life happens, and sometimes there's stuff going on right over there that interferes with what we're trying to do in here. As a reloader with over 25 years of experience loading for everything from IPSC matches to Sharp's rifle, Quigley style bucket shoots with black powder cartridges, to filling the freezer with meat and the walls with trophies, I've tried just about everything I could think of to make the reloading process a little more efficient. Probably the biggest hassle for me has been cartridge case cleaning. As a general rule, I'm a bit of a pack rat and often find boxes full of filthy brass laying around before I get the chance to worry about cleanup. Now for some things like small batches of 375 H&H brass, I'll just toss the dirties in my tiny little Frankford Arsenal Easy Sonic cleaner and then use my wife's blow dryer to speed dry them afterwards so that I can get the next batch of rounds ready. But when it comes to bulk loading 9mm for Tiatawaki, range practice, for more than 2 decades, I have relied on vibratory tumblers and either walnut or usually corncob media to get the job done. That said, vibratory tumblers have many limitations. They're noisy, they're dirty, they take forever for the cartridges to get polished, but perhaps the biggest drawback, for me anyway, is their limited capacity. I will be the first to admit that I have a tendency to abuse a tumbler. I have killed, destroyed, overloaded, and beat the living snot out of no less than a dozen tumblers over the years. I've tried just about all of them too. RCBS, Lyman, Hornady, Pacific, you name it, I've tried them. I have never gotten more than a couple of years out of one before it bites the dust. So when my last of 3 Frankford Arsenal vibratory tumblers gave up the ghost after a marathon session of polishing brass, I went straight back to their website to order up another one. Now you may be wondering, why would I replace something that I had just destroyed 3 times in a row with the exact same product? That's simple. They work really well, last just as long, and dollar for dollar they do the job for much less than a comparable unit from the competition. Even though they work just as well as the competition, as I mentioned before, I'm always looking for a better way to build a mousetrap. While I was browsing the interwebs, I was reminded of an option that I had never before explored in case preparation, and that was the Rotary wet tumbler option. Wet tumblers in general have a larger capacity than a vibratory unit, and as a habitual overloader of tumblers, you'll see more of that in the next segment, it dawned on me that perhaps I needed to explore adding a rotary tumbler to my stable. So naturally I looked to Frankford Arsenal, as I have viewed their line of reloading products over the years as a solid value. Now if you're not familiar with Frankford Arsenal, they have been around for a long time. And historically they offered just that, simple and effective tools that were a solid value to the budget-conscious reloader. However, not too long ago they were acquired by American outdoor brands, and since then they have made innovation a top priority. Listening to consumers, identifying issues with existing products, and developing new tools like the IntelliDropper and the X10 Progressive Press. They are dedicated to using new technology to elevate the reloading experience with quality tools that are built to last and deliver unmatched accuracy from the bench and in the field. These core brand values have helped make Frankford Arsenal the new generation of reloading. So I reached out to Frankford Arsenal and I told them what I was going to do, and I asked them if they would send me one of their tumblers for a review. They did. It's this one right here. This is their Platinum unit. It is the larger of 2 that they offer. It's a very nice unit. It's not a real inexpensive unit, but it has a lot of features that we'll go over here in a minute that I think make it a really nice option for a lot of folks. So the next portion of this video is going to be where I take you through the process and show you what you have to do in order to use this thing and make it work. Then we'll come back, we'll discuss some of the pros and cons, and we'll help you decide if one of these rotary tumblers is right for you. Alright, so with the end cap installed on one end, we'll take our dirty brass. I've already got 1 box in there, but we're going to fill this just about full. just about full of brass. We're going to go ahead and add our stainless steel pins in there. And we should be able to get the whole 5-pound bag in there. They're going to fall down in between those cases pretty easily, I would think. You want to be careful not to drop a bunch of these down your sink. It probably wouldn't be the end of the world, but it's best if they go where they're supposed to. And notice I got almost the whole bag in there. And that was without any shaking it around or moving it, so now I can get the rest of them in there. So it is safe to say at this point we got the entire 5 pounds of pins in there and a couple of 9mm cases. Now here's the little bag of solution that came with this. We'll go ahead and open it up and dump all of that in on top of our mixture. And now I'm going to take some hot tap water, just because I prefer taking a hot bath, and I think this brass probably will too. It says in the instructions use distilled water, but it says in the official Frankford Arsenal video to use tap water. That's what they demonstrated with, and I don't drink distilled water, and I'm not going to let this bunch of brass drink distilled water. What we're going to do is we're going to fill it just about completely full. I'm going to leave a little bit of an air gap there, but not a lot. And there we go. As you can see, we're down about an inch. Down about an inch from the neck, kind of like you would if you were canning jars, you know. Once we get it up to about the neck there, we can put our lid on, which fits pretty close to tight. Not quite tight, but close. We're just going to firm it up till it's snug. And we'll verify that we got a little wiggle room in there, which it seems like we do. Passed. The machine's quit turning, so we're going to go ahead and pick it up. So now we've got the machine sitting here on its end, and actually I'm going to flip it over because all the pins are on that end. Alright, so we've got the drum sitting here on its end, and mosquitoes are out. And you'll notice here that the kit comes with 2 of these. And I'll show you how those work here in just a second. For starters, we'll go ahead and hold the drum, loosen the cap, take that end off of there, and I'm going to drop the strainer portion down into the hole. Now you might be wondering why there's 2 of them. We're going to get to that here in just a minute. Look at that dirty, nasty black stuff coming out of there. It's like when you clean the upholstery on your car and it comes out just jet black and you wonder, how did that even happen? Well, so now we're going to sit it down in the hole. Per the instructions, we're going to fill the bucket about halfway to 2/3 full. We'll go ahead and rinse all those pins off of that cap. That's where they were on that end. You can see them in there. And we're going to fill this bucket almost all the way full of water. So now we're going to pick up our drum out of the bucket, sit it up here on the edge so I can get a hold of it without making a mess. Got it. And I'm going to turn it this way, and you saw all those pins fall out of there. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake it here in the water. I'm going to agitate it. I'm going to treat it like a teenager. Hey, go clean your room. That agitates the teenagers. Man, these mosquitoes are bad. Hold on, let me get some off. Oh yeah. Take that, you mosquitoes. We don't even want you around here. We don't like your type. There, hopefully that'll get rid of the mosquitoes. So we can finish this up. I'm going to add a little bit more water. Just a little bit deeper. Man, that was some grody, dirty water. I can tell you, my observation is every time I turn this over, I feel pins falling out of the hole, so I know they're coming out. My question is, how many are left in there? See there, so you can see there's quite a few on my hand. So I personally don't like this method. This was one of the methods the book called for. The other one is to use your rotary separator to spin them, and I think that's what I'm going to do next time. Of course, that's another piece of equipment to buy. I've already got one, so it's no big deal for me, but it's a factor to consider if you're buying equipment.
A few moments later.
I'm pretty sure I've gotten most of the media out of there by now. So now I'm going to go dispose of this chemical in a proper manner. Okay now, so after pouring that water in my wife's flour, disposing of it in a proper manner, I'll show you here that it looks like we've probably retrieved most of that 5 pounds of stainless steel pins. So now I'm going to refill the bucket with water, rinse these good, and sit to getting them out and drying them off. Now that I got the bucket full of water again, we'll give it another rinse to get any of the remaining pins out that we can, as well as to rinse the polishing chemical off of the brass. I'll tell you, this will give you a workout. This thing probably weighs about 30 or 40 pounds. Now I'm going to sit it there to continue to drain for a minute while I go dump the water again. One additional benefit to drinking store brand malt beverages is you get these cool cardboard trays, which work really good for collecting your wet steel pins. Now the commercial shows this thing picking up 25 pounds of steel in a Volkswagen. It actually only picks up a little bit at a time, but it works pretty good. You can see that's about what it picks up at once. It drops them all. That worked out really good. We'll leave those in that cardboard tray so they can dry out. And then we'll put them away in something once they're completely dry. So now we're going to use the other one for the brass. All right, and just in case you're wondering, if you shook this thing hard enough, you could probably shake a 9mm casing through the screen there, but I didn't have any come out. Now I noticed right away there's still a few of those stainless steel pins down in there. I would imagine once it's good and dry, the magnet will make short work of those as well. So there you have it. That brass looks really good. It looks a whole lot better than when we put it in there. So now I'm going to go stick those in my wife's oven at about 200 degrees and let them dry out a little bit. Here's a tech tip for you. Before you put your cardboard tray in the oven and the glue comes undone and the corners fall apart, stick a couple of staples in each corner to hold it all together. Alright, so we got the brass and the stainless steel pins out of the oven, and I can tell you the brass looks really, really good. But one thing that I wasn't too impressed with the media separator caps on the drum is if you look down in here, you'll see there's still a ton of those stainless steel pins mixed in with our brass, which brings us to what I would consider to be the one feature of the Frankford Armory Rotary Tumbler that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but just know that you're going to have to get something else to make it work right. And I'll explain that here in just a second. So here I have the basic Frankford Arsenal rotary media separator. This one I've had for years. It's lasted for years with no issue. You'll notice it's a little bit dingy. The inside of it is stained up with brass. That's because I've used it over and over again for years. This is not the best design for a media separator. Actually, I have another one from a different company that makes blue reloading gear, but Dylan didn't send me anything to review today, so I'm going to use the Frankford Arsenal one. And there is your example for how many of the pins were left behind after using the strainer end caps versus using the rotary tumbler. So as you saw there in that portion of the video, and you can see right here, I've got a whole tray full of clean brass here. Folks, all of this brass right here fit inside the tumbler along with the 5 pounds of media and enough water to make it work. Now, I will tell you, I kind of overloaded it, and I did that on purpose. I wanted to see just how much I could fit in it and still get the brass clean. And I did that because a lot of you, like me, just don't really have a lot of time to do this kind of stuff, so you want to try to maximize your efficiency while you do it. I will tell you that while this might not be the best method, it might be a little better to load it down a little bit so that it's got more room to move around. It did fine. And the brass was cleaned within the 3 hours that the timer on the front of the unit allow for, so I didn't have to reset anything with the unit. That being said, really like the fact that the unit is quiet. Compared to a vibratory tumbler, it's not bad at all. Don't really like the wet part of it, especially I could see that in the winter time when it's cold outside and you're trying to mess with this thing. Getting wet is going to be part of it. You're going to get a little bit wet doing it. Also, as I showed you there in the video, using the bucket of water and the screen caps on the end of the tumbler to separate the pins, again, maybe that would be a little bit easier if it wasn't quite as full, but that was kind of a pain in the butt. Using a rotary separator is a much better option in my opinion. I would suggest that if you plan on getting one of these, that you plan on getting something like this as well. Other than that, I can tell you that while I've used vibratory tumblers for years, I'd have a hard time going back to it after using this one, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to. Again, thanks to the folks over at Frankford Arsenal for making this happen. Let me know what you think. Have you tried one of these? Have you thought about trying one of these? Put it in the comment section down below. Let's keep the conversation going. And as always, take care. God bless.